Support for this podcast comes from the Utah Office of Tourism, announcing the Four Corners School of Outdoor Education, offering premier rafting trips on the San Juan River in the Bears Ears Cedar Mesa area. Join in rafting adventures that include yoga, music, photography, and more throughout this majestic waterway with a relaxing float on passenger rafts. Visit fourcornerschool.org/adventure for more information.
Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And this is Rich McFadden from Radio America in for Greg Corombos all this week, along with Jim Garrity, as usual, from National Review. And we've got your good, bad, and, of course, your crazy martinis for this Thursday. And jumping right into it, after the huge news day yesterday after the shooting, Jim, everybody's been paying attention to what's going on. They want to make sure that Congressman Scalise is doing well. The president went and visited him last night, says he's a tough guy, that he'll pull through. But he's still in critical condition, so it's going to be a long road to hoe for him. But the game must go on, right? And that it will. Here's Representative Roger Williams saying that the game will be played.
We're going to play. We need to play. This is a game that's been going on for over 100 years. It goes to charity, and we need to play this baseball game. And so I'm excited that we decided to do that. The speaker, I talked to the speaker today about it, told him that I felt like we should play. And I know he talked to Congressman Doyle and Congressman Barton. We all agreed we need to play baseball.
Is that the right call, Jim, you think?
I think it is. I think really that look, we will talk more about the shooter in a bit, but this was a guy who was filled with hate. This was a guy who was filled with the impulse to violence and rage. He wanted the Republicans to not merely not play, but to not exist. And so to continue on with the game is to say, no, you have failed. You have hurt people. But thankfully, it looks like as of this, as we're taping this, it looks like everybody's going to pull through. And our life goes on. You have not disrupted us. You have not scared us away. You have not made us afraid to gather and watch a baseball game played by politicians when we could probably pay good money and watch professional baseball players play baseball. If anything, this is probably going to be wonderful news for the charities that are helped by this game. And there's kind of a nice sense of defiance to this, that we're going to rise above this and we're going to demonstrate that ultimately even a raging maniac like this, he has the power in the threat, but he doesn't have power over us and the decisions we make.
And that's exactly what Representative Williams said.
And I think it's important because I think these people that want to destroy our lives and our livelihood here in America, they win if we give in. America doesn't give out. America doesn't give in. And we must play this baseball game. If we don't play this baseball game and we go home, then they win. So that's the reason. This is America, the greatest country in the world. If you punch us, we will punch back. And we're going to play baseball tomorrow.
Now, it's kind of interesting watching in the last 24 hours. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Will this kind of tear us further apart? Will people start to blame each other for the shooting? Or will this kind of bring out some civility? And so far, at least from up on the Hill, it looks like they're inching towards civility.
Indeed. This is one of those rare moments where we can say everyone in public life, in elected office who has spoken about this has spoken correctly. President Trump's remarks were exactly what we needed to hear yesterday. I think his tweet after his visit to Scalise last night was, there was almost a sweetness to it. That there are a lot of times we've seen Trump not be at his best, but I think it's a reassuring moment that in the moment of this crisis, when something awful happens, the mature, appropriate Trump seems to rise to the surface. Nancy Pelosi, Paul Ryan. Look, there's nothing wrong with impassioned political rhetoric. I've been writing about this since yesterday. But on the other hand, there are times where we could have a little more civility. We could have a more respectful debate that is focused on the issues and the policies we want to change instead of the other person is a ninny, the other person is a nincompoop. As someone was tweeting yesterday, Rich, they said, could we go from the people who disagree with me are stupid instead of the people who disagree with me are hateful Nazis who must be destroyed? And somebody said, wait, all we want is for them to start calling people to call each other stupid. And my response was, baby steps. We need to get to that. We need to get to the respectful debate of name calling before we could actually get to a serious and substantive and useful debate.
Well, I think Congressman Barton, he called it out. I mean, he called out social media, and I think he's right. I mean, I think the debate cable news really ratcheted up political conversation, 25 years ago when CNN and everybody started, and Fox News, MSNBC started. And then social media is what just kind of sent this on a rocket to the moon. And the lack of civility on social media, because nobody has to be mano-a-mano, face-to-face. Everybody can hide behind their keyboard and hit it. And Barton called that out yesterday. And one of the things I didn't realize is that this freshman class of congressmen actually signed a letter of civility before they got into office. And I hadn't even heard about that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And I guess probably even better is at least, the new Congress is young, but we hadn't heard about any freshmen who had, broken the pledge and, gone into a frothing in the mouth tirade at something like that. I think he really does put his finger on a problem with social media, because I was thinking I remember a couple of years ago, Charles Blow, who's a columnist for the New York Times, was fuming about something Mitt Romney had said or done. And he said something like, "Stick that in your magic underwear," a reference to Romney's Mormon faith. And I said, you would be the first person to denounce somebody who was making fun of a Muslim's faith or anybody else. Right. But because he's Mormon, it's perfectly okay. And I took it up with the Rich, this was way back in the old days when the New York Times had a public editor who was there to address reader complaints and stuff like that. And now the Times decided, we don't need that anymore.
Well, that takes
but I said to the public editor, "Are you guys going to do anything about this?" And he said, "Nah, I agree with your assessment. That's out of line, but we have other topics we want to talk about this week." And I was like, okay, fine. But I'd like to think that, let's imagine Charles Blow is at a dinner party or gathering of friends or something, and he's having a disagreement with a person who is Mormon, and he says to the guy, "Stick that in your magic underwear." You'd like to think everybody else would be kind of horrified.
Exactly.
There'd be gasp, dropped glasses, the piano player stop. It's like E.F. Hutton talks or something, right? But there'd be this kind of sense of like, people would turn, "What the hell's wrong with you? How could you? What does his faith have anything to do with this? Well, why are you attacking him for his religious beliefs? It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about." But Charles Blow felt comfortable tweeting that out there. And I think in social media, there's something dehumanizing about it, right? Because we're not interacting with person face to face. Yep. And maybe it's because we're not afraid. We're no longer afraid a person's going to haul off and slug us. I don't know. But we feel comfortable saying things that we wouldn't want to say face to face, because there'd be a reaction of the person we're addressing, and kind of a collective social reaction telling us, you're really not supposed to say something like that. That's wrong. That is a, inappropriate comment. That is inappropriate behavior. We expect better of you. And Twitter and Facebook and a lot of these things don't have that. So you can marinate in an environment where talking like this and feeling like this is acceptable. And there's no one around to discourage you and say, "Don't do this. This is not how a decent human being is supposed to treat other people."
Exactly. And then that kind of takes us into our bad Martini, where the New York Times editorial is still carrying on a lie about the Tucson shooter and Sarah Palin's Facebook post, right?
No, this has me livid this morning. And the irony is, yesterday afternoon, I was making my point in an exchange with Ace of Spades, who I think very well of. He and I disagreed very strongly on this. And my attitude was like, look, I don't believe that talk radio cost Oklahoma City. I don't think that heavy metal music or video games caused Columbine. And I didn't think that there had been nothing to prove that the Tucson shooter, who was a paranoid schizophrenic who believed that grammar was a vast government conspiracy. There was no evidence he had ever seen anything from Sarah Palin, that he'd ever been a Republican, that he'd ever had anything connected to the right. So if I don't think these outside forces cause people to do these violent acts, why would I turn around and say this shooting is Bernie Sanders' fault? And the approach of the Ace of Spades and a lot of other folks online was, well, look, the left has this coming, all right? They blamed violent acts on conservative rhetoric. It's time to blame these acts on liberal rhetoric, even if we don't believe this, because they need to feel what it's like when you're unjustly accused of something. And I can understand the logic of that. I just am not so sure it's going to work. But then you see this morning from the New York Times, which comes out and asserts it again, twice in one editorial.
Wow.
And as somebody put it, this is just a Stalinist rewriting of history. And it's just appalling that the New York Times editorial board, who are supposed to be smart, well-informed people, I mean, either, as one person put it, either they didn't read their own paper's reporting on the trial of the Tucson shooter, or they're lying, and they're telling a lie because they want to smear the right with the actions of a deranged, paranoid, schizophrenic madman. And either one of those answers is really bad. And you're already hearing, oh, okay. As we are speaking, I'm finding, Rich, I am just learning they've just issued a correction. Quote, the version of this editorial incorrectly stated that a link existed between political incitement and the 2011 shooting of Representative Gabby Giffords. In fact, no such link was established. Thank you, Sherlock.
Congratulations, Jim Garrity. They were listening, they heard, and they retracted. You are powerful, my man.
It's like pulling teeth, but okay.
All right, now on to our crazy and last martini of the day. And this is the one on everybody's mind this morning. This guy's been posting, showing up at events, ranting, standing in his front yard, shooting a gun into nowhere, and neighbors call the police. He's been abusing foster children. How in the world did this guy get to this point without somebody taking a closer look at him? He's obviously been under the microscope because he's been arrested several times, but never seriously charged with anything. But yet he grows and grows and grows, and look what we get.
I have to give a real salute to the Daily Beast reporting team that went out to Belleville, Illinois, and contacted people who had known the shooter. And it is a very ugly picture. And I can't say that this is the sort of article you really need to read, but it is not an enjoyable read. I think the most horrifying detail in it is that one of his foster daughters literally set herself on fire and died, committed suicide that way. And it sounds like no serious questions were ever asked about what led to that. And your mind can only imagine what would drive someone to do something like that. Other allegations of abuse on other foster daughters, other threatening behavior. Look, there are a lot. When something terrible like the Alexandria shooting happens, everybody wants to know, what can we do about this? How can we stop the next one? What can we do? And we're constantly hearing, if you see something, say something, usually more in the context of terrorism and abandoned backpacks and stuff like that. But the idea is that, well, these things can be prevented if people are more aware of their surroundings and they don't just hand wave away behavior that is troubling or suspicious or potentially threatening. Well, look, this guy, because somebody missed a court hearing, got let out. And as a result of that, you just have this nagging fear that people in law enforcement, the judicial system, and just authorities, figures whose duty is to protect us, simply aren't taking it seriously enough before it escalates to a mass shooting. And it just, this is a horrible tale of one red flag after another, and not merely like strange behavior. We're talking violence, threatening behavior. What are we supposed to do? What's the point of reporting these things if it's not going to get dealt with by legal authorities? So I think there are some very hard questions that need to be directed at the police and the legal system out there who had dealt with the shooter before. And, again, if this sort of stuff is not going to be dealt with by the legal system, how on earth are we going to think about, trying to police speech or online tweeting or social media, all these other things we're talking about, if threatening behavior itself isn't enough to get you in serious legal consequences?
And that's the thing. I mean, one of the concerns here is that everybody starts calling about their neighbor and saying, the guy that lives next to me is crazy. You need to check him out. There's going to be a ton of that. But really, when the police show up, if they show up, leave, and don't do anything about it, when you have a foster daughter who commits suicide, then they give you another foster daughter that you abuse, that you're shooting the gun into the air, although he was legal, he had a permit, and it was his gun. At a certain point, it's the law enforcement's responsibility to really take a closer look and not just walk away from these things.
Yeah, and again, like if this wasn't enough to get someone in serious legal trouble, how many other folks are out there? Yeah. You don't want to walk around looking over your shoulder and full of paranoia and fear. Our first martini was about standing defiantly in the face of fear. But the idea of somebody passing in and out of the system with so many, warning signs that seem really glaring in retrospect, a very unnerving thought. And so, hey, happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday. All right, and on that note, there's your good, your bad, your crazy for Thursday. We'll be back again tomorrow on Friday for your martinis to end the week up. And until then, I am Rich McFadden with the Radio America Network, and he is Jim Garrity with the National Review Online, saying have a great Thursday.
When's the last time you thought happy thoughts about your Wi-Fi? Most of us have not so happy Wi-Fi thoughts, like I never have Wi-Fi in the kitchen, or I have to reset the router again. TP-Link's Deco M5 creates fast, reliable Wi-Fi in every room of your home. And Deco has the best security of any whole home Wi-Fi system, so you and your family only have happy Wi-Fi thoughts. Visit Amazon.com/TP-Link and use promo code 50radio for $50 off at checkout.
It happens every summer. Stargazers delight in the opportunity to view constellations that can't be seen in winter, while car lovers delight in the opportunity to own one of our stars. At the Mercedes-Benz Summer Event, you can get the Mercedes-Benz of your dreams for less than you thought possible, like the supremely intelligent E-Class sedan or the awe-inspiring GLC. Don't miss this once-in-a-summertime opportunity. Hurry in to our summer event. Visit MBUSA.com to learn more. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.